Hello again. This is episode 3 now of what I've now determined is called Poets and Depression. It's a podcast about art and mental health, predominantly poetry. That's what I do. That's what a lot of people that I know do. But it might branch beyond that. I'd love to be able to get other people on and be able to start doing like a more quote-unquote legitimate podcast where I can have guests on, do interviews, that kind of stuff like that. I think would be really cool and really neat. But the main thing about this was I started doing some of those videos. I started doing those other podcast episodes and realized I enjoyed talking about the poetry I'm working on and writing. I've enjoyed talking about where I'm at mentally and dealing with depression, my struggle, my battle, my managing it now, more or less. And yeah, I realized that this is kind of a needed space because it's really important that we talk about mental health, and it needs to be normalized. It needs to be something that you can talk about. I'm really open about the fact that I go to therapy, that I'm on medications, that I've been trying medications, that I have treatment-resistant depression, and the bad days, the good days, which are getting a little bit better, and the kind of middle of the road, kind of meh, and just kind of the bottom, where you kind of ride that bottom line and you kind of go up and down from there. And so it's like you realize that you can go lower sometimes, which is never fun to figure out. But so that's where this all kind of came from. I've started writing about depression more. I've started writing about my mental health more. And mental health is so important, and I'm really open about it. I'm even open about it at work. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I am. My boss and all of my coworkers know that I go to therapy, know what I'm dealing with, because I think it is important, because we're in a society, in a place where mental health isn't always given the appropriate level of gravitas that it should. Like, it's important that people talk about mental health. It's important that people get help for their mental health and their mental illnesses and disabilities. Like, it's just really important. And a lot of the times the struggle is you can't do it on your own, but you can't have other people force you to do it either. And so you get into this really weird situation of how do you get help, or how do you help somebody that doesn't necessarily know they need help or know that they want help. And I went through that a lot when I was dealing with my untreated and undiagnosed depression. Even though I knew it was depression, I always thought I could take care of it myself, like therapy was for people that were, quote unquote crazy, but it's not. Therapy is for normal people. Therapy is for everyday people. Therapy is for people that have mental health issues and people that don't. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to and vent and process things through. Like, it needs to be normalized because it is so important, because there's so many of us out there that are dealing with mental health that don't have a support system. I'm fortunate that I have a phenomenal and very loving wife. She is my rock, she is my world, and she has helped me through some of my absolute darkest places. She has absolutely seen me at my worst. And she still loves me. I've seen her worst, and I still love her. And that's the type of support system that you need. That's the type of support system that you want. And so when people aren't willing to help, the best you can do is just to be there for them, to offer, to listen, to offer support, to encourage them. You might be able to eventually start nudging them. Like, I didn't start going to therapy until my wife started therapy, because I realized it was helping her. I realized I needed it, and it took seeing her being willing to get that help for me to get help, which is a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing and being as open and honest about this, because if I can help be that push for somebody else to realize that, hey, maybe therapy isn't such a bad idea, that's a win. And so the last 2 episodes I've talked about, episode 1 was Sugar Rush, the poem about depression winning. Episode 2 was the poem called Lemon, which is about me kind of fighting back against depression. And so this episode I'm kind of dedicating to the idea of being saved. I mean, not like a savior type of thing, but having somebody that, like, having that support system, having that somebody that can help you and realize that you need help. And so this poem is called I Will Always Offer My Hand. We will transform into a waterfall, falling into and over and onto ourselves again and again as the water cavitates on soaking boulders and pretends to be the sky, blue and full of rain and hope and the murmuration of black wings, tiny cutouts of the sky, paper angels poached and falling only to be caught by the cradling arms of us as waterfalls. You forget you were once one of those paper angels, that I had caught you and pulled you close, to feel the heat of your skin in your mine, to see our breath as it becomes mist in the cascading water. I simply never let go. Well, this was a powerful poem for me when I wrote it. It actually was inspired by a conversation I had had on Threads with Kiki at Kiki Poetry. Kiki underscore poetry, I think. I'd have to remember. You can find her. She's on Instagram as well. And she is phenomenal. Like, she's a champion of sharing poets and reading poetry. Her poetry itself is phenomenal. She does all these awesome prompts and stuff like that. She's a true treasure on Threads, and the encounters that I've had with her, she's fantastic. But we had been talking about depression and trauma, and she had brought up the idea of like wounded healers and that kind of thing like that. And this came from there, this idea that I will always offer my hand. What might be interesting for some people to note about this poem is that it's not written as if I'm the I, or as if the speaker is the I. So I'm usually never very personal in poetry. I've gotten a lot more personal lately with everything. I used to be a lot more reserved and step back from it. I'm not doing that as much anymore. I'm very much in there. But you can still look at all these poems as if they're not about me. They can be about you too. I mean, they're about anybody. That's the beauty of poetry, and that's what I try to do, is convey the emotion, convey that the imagery and the place, so you can put yourself in there if you need to, so you can help process. And it's like I'm processing. But so the idea of this poem is like, typically, obviously, you see the I that you thinking, oh, that's the speaker. That could potentially be the poet. It can be important to differentiate the two and not get them confused. The speaker and the poet can be two individual people, but that's a whole conversation for a different day, because at this point in time, it's not really the issue here. But yeah, so like, normally you'd think, oh, the speaker is the poet, and so, I will always offer my hand. I simply never let go. The fact of the matter is, I'm the you in this poem. This is somebody talking to me. And in this exact instance, it's my wife talking to me. She just didn't know it. I've shared this with her. Because I feel like when I fell as far as I did sometimes, she was the one that caught me, that grabbed me and held me until I was able to kind of get back up and see again. She prevented me from falling further than I could. Like, I was never at the point where I was suicidal. That never really crossed my mind, but I did have more passive ideation, where like I thought, oh, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if this happened. I wasn't actively seeking it, but the fact of the matter is, like, I would have been okay if it had just happened. And that's obviously not a great place to be in for anybody, and neither is active ideation of suicide. And if you're at that point, reach out immediately. You need help. And there is help out there for you. The suicide prevention hotline, there's esketamine, there are drugs that can help you immediately, there are people that can help you immediately. Reach out to your friends, talk, share, it doesn't matter, share, because we know when somebody shares that they're feeling that way, that they are asking to be helped, they're asking to be saved, they want a reason to stick around, so give them a reason to stick around. So that's kind of where this poem came from, is that idea of being saved, being helped, of having somebody willing to reach out, grab on, and never let go. And it's an important part of dealing with mental health, dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, bipolar, ADHD, everything, really. Knowing that you have somebody that is going to be always there for you can make one hell of a difference in your life. It really can. I don't know where I'd be without my wife, without Erica. I'd still be alive. I'm not going to go that way, but the few times we broke up for a brief period of time, she had just moved down. I had been used to living alone, and we excuse me, we moved in together for the first time. She had never been alone before, and I had always been alone. And we didn't talk, we didn't communicate, and we clashed, and we kind of fell apart. And then we realized down the road that we were meant to be together, because we knew that we were worse without each other. And we finally talked and reconciled and got back together, and now we've been married almost 15 years. We've been together probably almost 20 now. Because, yes, we're high school sweethearts. We started dating in high school. So we've been in each other's lives for a lot longer than we haven't now. And that's pretty cool. I really like that. So, yeah, like having her has made a huge difference in my life. And this idea that she's been able to be there for me, she's been able to save me and help. And then that's kind of the whole idea behind this poem, too. Like, we will transform into a waterfall. And that ties into the cyclical nature of water, where, like, water might be constantly falling, but through the water cycle, evaporation, condensation, all that stuff like that, water is always kind of seen as kind of eternal. And so you're falling over and over and over again. And then just the power that waterfalls hold, the majestic beauty and the sound and the thundering roar. Like, waterfalls are incredible, and they're powerful, and they're just awe-inspiring and dangerous. But so to be together, to transform into the waterfall, so you're constantly together, you're there, like, it can be a violent push and pull, but you're there, you're together, and you're always going to be together, and you always come back together. Like, when the waterfall falls, and the water might start separating, it all falls back into the river, like, or the lake, or the ocean, or the whatever. Like, water always comes back together. And in a relationship, that's what you want. Even if you have some turmoil, you always come back together. It's really important. And if you can't come back together, then that's probably something else you got to deal with and work on. And then moving on to the idea of, like, I love this next stanza that I wrote. The blue and full of rain and hope and the murmuration of black wings, tiny cutouts of the sky, paper angels poached and falling. I've always loved that idea of negatives and defining things negatively. So, like, working through what isn't there. And so the cutout of the sky, so the black birds or the birds against the sky, it's where the sky isn't now. And so that was just a really cool image for me, and I really like that. And it kind of gives you that idea of separation, that something's not quite right, and then the idea of paper angels being poached in the sky. Like, so if it's a cutout of the sky, there's got to be a piece of the sky that's been cut out. And those fall as those paper angels. And so, like, you think about a paper angel, they're not really real. They're not really an angel. They don't have a whole lot of anything going on for them. They can just be kind of pretty. Or they were just made for a cheap decoration. I'm sure there's some other benefits to them, but I mean, they're paper angels. But they're two-dimensional, they're flat, they can fall apart really easily. And so the idea of being a paper angel and being saved, being able to be so fragile, but still be able to be saved by something so powerful as a waterfall, because in a relationship, you can be that tender to each other. And you can be that thoughtful and that caring and that close and that intimate, and the idea of then being caught and becoming a waterfall together, like that convergence. It was just a really powerful image to me, which I guess is a part of why I wrote it. But yeah, and then the ending, just, I simply never let go. And so it kind of cycles back to the beginning of the poem again, where we will transform into a waterfall, because now we're together. Because she grabbed my hand, she held me, she kept me from falling, she pulled me close, and she has never let go. She never has, and never will, and I'm never going to let go of her. And that's kind of where this idea of this poem came from, was that relationship, and then the conversation I had with Kiki about, like, kind of like the wounded healers. Like, if somebody's in need, if somebody's hurting, if somebody's going through a mental trauma or mental issue or mental break or anything like that, where they're really, really struggling, I'm always going to offer my hand. I'm always going to offer my ear, my shoulder. I'm going to offer whatever you need so that you can get through this, because you can get through this. The poem I'm going to read next week, or next episode, I'm not sure exactly when I'll do that. Don't really have a set schedule, and I'm doing that on purpose so I can stay focused on doing this, because as soon as I start setting schedules, I can start failing, and if I start failing, I stop doing things, and so being able to do things on my own time has really helped me to maintain momentum and to keep doing this. So, for now, no schedule, bear with me, I appreciate it, but you're probably going to get quite a bit for a while, and then you might get like once a month. Like, at the bare minimum, I want to do at least one a month kind of thing. It's just a matter of when. But, so the poem I want to talk about next week is one that I wrote recently, and it deals with the idea of being unbroken, because that can be a huge recurrence in talking about mental health, mental illness, and feeling like you're broken and you're not worthy of being fixed, or you can't be fixed. And again, that's kind of like the poem I wrote last week, or last time in episode 2, The Lemon, where it started out as that idea of being so far beyond repair that you can't be fixed. You just got to be tossed out because you're a lemon. But that poem wouldn't get written that way, and it wouldn't allow itself to be written that way. And so I ended up writing the poem about fighting back against depression, and that real just raw, visceral anger against it, and being able to fight back, like the juice is worth the squeeze kind of thing, you know? And so we've had depression winning, we've had fighting back against depression, we've had being saved. So next episode is going to talk about being unbroken, and how you aren't broken. You can't be fixed because you don't need to be fixed. You can be helped, you can be encouraged, you can improve, you can be loved, and you can be supported, but you're not broken. You're never broken. You're never broken. So until next time.